Good morning, students. In today's class, we will be discussing about perceptual processing approaches in perception. So, let us begin with the class. So, let us begin with the topic of perceptual processes. So, we have already studied about stimulation of sensory organs in the previous section. So we experience a flash of light or a sound or a smell. So the first experience, that is your elementary experience, is known as your sensation, but it does not provide us with any understanding of the stimulus that stimulated sense organ. Okay, so for example, it does not inform us about the source of the light, sound, or fragrance. We only had the sensation, we only had the experience, like we heard some we heard some sound, or we got some smell, but where did the stimulus come from, all these things, or where did the fragrance come from? With just a mere sensation, we will not get all the informations. Okay, so in order to make sense out of the raw material provided by sensory system, we process it further, so it goes for further processing. Sensation is not enough. Okay, so in doing so, we give meaning to stimuli by using our learning, memory, motivation, emotions, and other psychological processes. So we give meaning to the stimuli which gave us sensation through our learning, whatever we have learned so far. Our memory, we have memories, we know that this has happened and this is happening again. Memory. Then motivation, there are motivational factors also related, which we will be studying further. Okay, and our emotions and other psychological processes. Okay, so these processes are involved in giving meaning to stimuli. So the process by which we recognize, interpret, or give meaning to the information provided by sense organ is called perception. Okay, so we recognize a particular stimuli, we interpret it, and we give meaning to the information which is provided by our sense organ, and this whole process is known as perception. Okay, so the process of meaning making involves certain sub processes. So this process of perception also has other sub processes, and which are shown in figure 5.4. See figure 5.4. Stimulus. Okay, you have the stimulus, and sensory receptors receive this stimulus, and you pay attention to these stimuli. Okay, and then it goes to CNS, central nervous system, brain. Then all the process, learning, memory, and other psychological processes, it happens here, and then we perceive whatever we have we have to perceive from the environment. Okay, so this is the sub processes of perception. First, you receive the stimulus through sensory receptors, then you attend to these stimulus, then these information goes to your central nervous system, and their learning, memory, and other psychological processes helps us to perceive this particular stimulus and draw a meaning out of this whole experience. Okay, so now coming to processing approaches and perception. So now how do we identify an object? Do we identify a dog because we have first recognized its furry coat, its four legs, its eyes, ears, and so on, or do we recognize these different parts because we have first identified a dog? So what is the process that we use? First, we recognize a dog because it has four legs, furry body, two eyes, or we first notice that okay, this is a dog, so a dog will definitely have four legs, furry body, two eyes. So in which way do we recognize a particular object? Okay, the idea that recognition process begins from parts which serve as the basis for the recognition of the whole is known as bottom up processing. Okay, so if we perceive a particular thing by recognizing it from the parts and then the whole, like for example, a child sees a dog and the child sees that that particular object has four legs or a furry body, so and two eyes, so it is a dog. Then we will call it a bottom up processing. Okay, so from parts to whole, moving from parts to whole, that is your bottom up processing. And the notion that recognition process begins from the whole, which leads to identification of its various components, is known as top down processing. So suppose a child looks at a dog and says that it is a dog, so it will have four legs, a furry body, two eyes, a tail, like that. So it is top down top down processing. So you see the whole as first and then you recognize the parts. Okay, so these are two kinds of approaches in perception. One is your bottom up processing, the other one is your top down processing. The bottom up approach lays emphasis on the features of stimuli in perception and considers perception as a process of mental construction. Okay, so remember, the bottom up approach lays emphasis on the features of stimuli, as in the parts like the furry body, two eyes, tail, legs. So features are focused in bottom up processing. Okay, the top down approach lays emphasis on the perceiver and considers perception as a process of recognition or identification of stimuli. So in the second type of processing, that is top down processing, the focus is on the perceiver, how we are perceiving that particular object or that thing. Okay, so it basically focuses on the perceiver, that is us. And in bottom up processing, it mainly focuses on the features of the stimuli. Okay, so these are the two kinds of processing approaches in perception. Human beings are not passive recipients of stimuli from the external world, but we are also creative human beings, and we try to understand the external world in our own ways. And in this process, our motivations, expectations, cultural knowledge, past experiences and memories, as well as values, beliefs and attitude, play an important role in giving meaning to external world. So let us discuss some of these factors described below. So the first one is motivation. So the needs and desires of a perceiver strongly influence her or his perception. People want to fulfill their needs and desires through various means. One way to do is to perceive objects in a picture as something that will satisfy their need. Okay, so experiments were conducted to examine the influence of hunger on perception. When hungry persons were shown ambiguous pictures, they were found to perceive them as pictures of food objects more often than satiated, that is not a hungry person. So our motivation, needs and desires affect our perception. Okay, so the way we are motivated, it reflects on how we are perceiving things. Okay, so now I give you an example of, if you are if you are hungry and I show you some abstract pictures, and then you will think it to be some food because you are hungry. Okay, so there can be other examples also. For example, suppose you are stressed. Okay, you are not doing really well, and then I show you some picture of a person sitting on a table, then probably you will perceive the person to be also in stress the way you are stressed. So it happens. Okay, so the way we are, or the needs and desires that we are having, we perceive things like that. So we have some psychological test to check personality or to check motivation of other people. So the client is presented with a set of pictures, and the way he or she is perceiving those pictures, so that way their personalities are interpreted. Okay, so some abstract pictures are shown. So it reflects the way you perceive things, reflects your own needs and desires, and which will be very different in different individuals. Okay, so now let us talk about expectations or perceptual sets. So the expectations about what we might perceive in a given situation also influence our perception. So we all have expectations. Suppose I ordered something like some food. I ordered some food, and if the calling bell, if I hear the sound of the calling bell, I would be expecting the food that I have ordered, right? So this is my expectation, and when the calling bell rings, then I will expect the food delivery guy to be there. Okay, so this phenomenon of perceptual familiarization or perceptual generalization reflects a strong tendency to see what we expect to see, even when the results do not accurately reflect external reality. Okay, so now in this example only, if I am expecting the food delivery guy at my doorstep, but then someone else comes, so that will be something different from what I am expecting, what is different from the external reality. I go there and I see that okay, someone else is there, and I'll get disappointed because my food has not come yet. So this is expectation or perceptual sets. So the expectations about what we might receive in a given situation also influence our perception. So I am perceiving that the food delivery guy has come, but actually someone else has come. Okay, so this is my expectation. So perception also depends on what you are expecting as well. Now let us come to cognitive styles. Okay, so cognitive styles refers to a consistent way of dealing with our environment. It significantly affects the way we perceive the environment. There are several cognitive styles that people use in perceiving the environment. Okay, so there are styles how we perceive things from the environment. So here we will talk about one most extensively used in studies is the field dependent and field independent cognitive style. So we are going to talk about field dependent and field independent cognitive styles. So what is field dependent? So field dependent people perceive the external world in its totality, that is in global or holistic manner. On the other hand, field dependent people perceive the external world by breaking into smaller units, that is an analytic or differentiated manner. So now for example, I'll give you one example. Okay, like for if you have seen, okay, most people are field dependent. Okay, we see the world in totality. Like if I see a bike, then I will say, oh, that's a nice bike. But then if you notice that you have some friends, or there are people who will rather say, oh, the tires are really nice, or this part of the tire is really cool, something like that. Or every time you go everywhere, they will start noticing things in part. Whether if you are noticing things as a whole, but your friend is noticing things in part first and then the whole, so those people who are noticing things in parts before the whole are field independent. They notice the parts before, and those people who see the whole before, like, oh, this dress is pretty, but some people will be like, oh, I like the collar of this dress. So the one who will say that I like the collar of this dress is feel independent, and the one who will say that I like the dress will be feel dependent. Okay, so now look at figure 5.5. Can you find out the triangle hidden in the picture? You just see, can you find out? And if you find out, then how much time are you taking to find out the triangle? So those who can do it quickly will be called field independent, and those who take long time will call field dependent. Okay, so if you are quick to find out the triangle, then you are field independent, and if you are taking time to find out the triangle, then you are field dependent. So try this experiment. Okay, now let us talk about cultural background and experiences. So we all have different upbringings. We are and some of us are brought up in different cultural background also, so we have different experiences. So people coming from a pictureless environment fail to recognize objects in pictures. Okay, so there are tribes and some backward regions in the world where people still do not know what pictures are. Okay, so they will fail to recognize objects in pictures. Hudson studied the perception of pictures by African subjects and noted several difficulties. Many of them were unable to identify objects depicted in pictures, that is, antelope and spear. They also failed to perceive distance in pictures and interpreted pictures incorrectly. And Eskimos have been found to make fine distinction among a variety of snow that we may not be able to notice. Some aboriginal groups of Siberian region have been found to differentiate among dozens of skin colors of reindeers, which we would not be able to do. Okay, so see, it depends on cultural background, so cultural background and experiences. So Eskimos have a very different upbringing than us. Their whole lives they have been brought up in snow only, so we will not be able to tell the differences between snow, that this is this snow or that is that snow, but an Eskimo will be able to tell you that. So it is because of their upbringing and their experiences. Okay, so whatever you are exposed to and whatever experiences that you have gotten will be reflected in your perception, how you perceive things. Okay, so it depends on your experiences and your upbringing. Okay, so these studies indicate that the perceiver plays an important role in the process of perception. So people process and interpret stimuli in their own ways depending on their personal, social and cultural condition. Okay, so personal as in whether you are feel independent or dependent or what kind of motivation you have. Then social and cultural conditions, like what upbringing you had, what experiences you got being brought up in a particular culture. Okay, so due to these factors our perception are not only finely tuned but also modified. Okay, so this way our perceptions are tuned and modified. Okay, so these are the reasons how we perceive things. So I have already talked about how cultural background and experiences um, influences our perception. So these are the reasons how our perception is influenced or how our perception is tuned and modified. Okay, so that's all for today's class. If you have any doubt or queries, you can definitely ask me. Thank you.